Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Art of an Actor panel as part of Variety and Sony Picture Television's virtual FYC house. I'm Janelle Riley, Deputy Awards and Features Editor at Variety, and I am so pleased to welcome today's guests. We have from Woke, Lamorne Morris, from Cobra Kai, Ralph Macchio and William Zabka, from The Good Doctor, Will Young Lee, and from Wheel of Time, Daniel Henney. Thank you all so much for being here. And thank a lot of you for helping me get through the pandemic with all of the great television. Whenever I have people as accomplished as you all are, I actually love to go back to the beginning and ask, what was the first time you felt you could call yourself an actor? That might have been the first time you were paid for it, whether it was good or not, or maybe just like if you did a school play and you realized this is what I want to do. It's different for everyone. And let's start with Daniel.
Without being too cheesy here, a movie called The Karate Kid was very special to me growing up. And I was in a small town, only Asian kid there. And that movie kind of gave me the confidence to stand up to people, to get out and try things. And that's what eventually got me into theater. And then in fifth grade, I was the lead, I think, in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I played Charlie, which was a big deal and a big moment. And then from there on out, it was just, being from a very small town, I think being in the arts, anything was kind of like, in a way, like waving kind of a freak flag around. You didn't want to stand out too much. But it was just a process of trying different things. And, just once I got to college, I felt more free and jumped into a full-on theater troupe and then moving up to the world, New York and all those things, the basic steps. But, there's a lot of stories and different narratives out there.
Oh, that's great. Lamorne, for you?
I had a similar trajectory. I think when I was in church, I used to mock the preacher a lot. Because he wore, the most ridiculous suits. His pink jacket matched his Rolex. Why do you have a Rolex? Anyway, that was the first time that I realized I was a performer, I guess, because I used to mock him and I used to do bits. And when they would have a church play, they would always ask me to be a part of it. And I didn't know that was a career path to take. I thought I was going to play basketball, and then I wasn't that good. And then, high school years is kind of when folks started to really, invite me to be a part of certain things, theater and school plays. And even then, I didn't really consider myself an actor. I was just kind of killing time, I think. But I got asked to do a commercial, and it was one of the dumbest commercials you could ask. It was one of those auto loan commercials where they say, "Hey, you got an auto loan by such and such. How do you feel?" And I said, "Man, I feel great." I think that was it, the extent of it. But it came on local television in Chicago, and family members all thought I was a millionaire. That's when I realized, oh, I'm an actor. Like, this is it.
I remember your commercial. That was really good.
Really?
Auto loan.
Oh, damn auto loan commercials.
You just got asked to do it? Is this like a Discovery in a drugstore story?
No, well, when I say asked to do it, it was one of those you don't have to audition for it. I had got an agent. I had gone through that process and, auditioned for certain things. But this one was hey, do you want to just come and make $100 and pretend to have gotten an auto loan? And that was my first gig that I booked. And that was it. And, from there, obviously done a bunch of commercials and, the trajectory goes how it goes. But that was the first time seeing myself on television and seeing the reaction for people. Clearly I was lying. Clearly I did not get an auto loan for a BMW. So I must have done a good job.
Just now when you said it, I believed you. So
Thank
clearly
you for
you're a
saying
good actor.
Thank you for saying so. I appreciate that.
William, what about for you?
Oh, good question. Well, I didn't do an auto loan commercial, but I did a lot of commercials when I was a kid. When I started out, I had an 8mm film camera in my hand since the time I was 10 years old. My dad had an 8mm film camera and filmed our whole lives. And I ended up kind of taking over and directing these kind of elaborate little mock films of Star Wars and cowboys and Indians and all this. And so I was always cutting films and watching it. And, in that sense, I always felt that I was an actor. I did plays when I was a kid. I remember when I started getting to commercials, my parents asked if I wanted to do commercials because some of my friends were doing them. And I asked, do we have enough money to be on TV? And they said, no, they pay you to be on TV. I said, wait, they pay you to do this? I'm going to, So I said, okay. And then my first thing I ever got was a little public service announcement. It was a thing about anti-drugs, and it was a little I was one of a bunch of kids in a gang, and they flew me to San Francisco with my mom. And I remember having lobster with her someplace on location. And I think that was the first time I felt like, wow, I'm really an actor now. You know, that was the first moment. But it's always kind of in your blood. You're an actor. I think one day it dawns on you that, hey, this is a career now, you know. And I think that didn't really settle in for me till like down the line from my first film, really, where I'm like, wow, this is actually really what I'm doing. You know, it's not just, I didn't just get a couple parts, like I have a career, and so I'm an actor. So I better get back to school and learn how to do this.
Yeah.
By the way, you're still making short films. You were nominated for an Academy Award for one of your shorts.
Well, let's not talk about that. But yes, because it's nice to be nominated. I know what it's like to hear your name and not win. I know that clap. I can tell you that. And it was actually, for me, for real, it was actually a relief, because I was thinking of all the people you have to thank, you know, like, I don't thank, you know, I get up there, I don't want to leave anybody out. And I'm going through the list with my partner, and they called somebody else, and we're like, we don't have to do that. And then on the way home, we're like, wait, we didn't win. But yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was it was what I did. I always make films. I was a filmmaker. I went to school to be a filmmaker before my career took off as an actor. So I love them both equally.
You said, let's not talk about that. But if I were you, I would talk about nothing else. I would insist everyone introduce me.
Listen, for a short film to get nominated, to get attention for a short film, that's why, you know, make a short film, you're not going to really see any real return on that, and the world may not see it. So you kind of climb the festival ladder and pray that, you know, you can get it somewhere in high places to give it, you know, some, you know, critical acclaim, and maybe you'll push people to see it. It's a great film. Very proud of it. Spent many years on it. It's called Most. You can look it up.
And Ralph, for you?
Yeah, well, for me, it was Gene Kelly and watching the 4:30 movie in New York on Channel 11 with Mom as a kid, and just, you know, then sort of like dancing around the house or pretending to dance around the house. I thought Gene Kelly was the coolest, the most masculine, smoothest, you know, just awesome. And I grew up watching those movies, and then a couple of years later, I'm running up the steps like Rocky, or you know, reciting lines from On the Waterfront or The Godfather. So I just was influenced by television and movies. Then came school plays, musicals. I could tap dance a little bit, so in my Gene Kelly pretending time, and then so that was where the bug came, and I hit the, you know, the thrill of the footlights, and people seemed to dig it, and I looked young for my age, which I'm still attempting to pull off. But so I looked like I was 12 when I was 16. So it's like, this kid's really good. Yeah, he's 26, but don't tell anyone. And so and then I started, you know, going on auditions. I you know, it was instinctual for me. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed communicating, building, you know, even before I knew how to build a character, sort of, you know, coming up with what that walk was and what that cadence in speech was. And I just found that creative process kind of instinctual for me. But interesting, like how Billy just said, you know, I started booking stuff right away. And then kind of paid my dues after that initial surge and success, you know, so I sort of, it kind of happened a little backwards. You know, what do you mean I don't get every single part I go up for? You know, 4 years after, when things start slowing down. So that was, my journey was a little less of pounding the pavement for decades for the break. It was the break, and then, okay, so now how do we reinvent? And here we are.
Wow. Will, for you?
First of all, Ralph, I have to say, your movie Karate Kid, before I get into anything with me, I just have to say, because of your movie, I bought that thing on VHS and I wore the tape out. I loved it so much. I was teaching at my dad's martial arts schools forever. And I loved it so much that if any of you guys want to get into my bank account, one of my passwords is, if you ask, you know, what's your favorite movie? It's Karate Kid with the number 1. So you can get into my
one more time. That's Karate Kid, all lowercase. All lowercase. Okay.
Awesome.
You know, I started pretty late in the game, and I remember for the first time, you know, my vocabulary is very limited, but when I heard the word per diem, I was like, well, I guess maybe that's what actors, that's part of my thing now. And I played my first role. I think that I played as I think I'm an actor. Was I played Ice-T's adopted son from the streets, and my name was Yo-Yo Lee, and I could rap. And the breakdown was he's a rapper from the streets who's adopted by Ice-T, but he's in a ninja gang outfit, and he's a fast talker like Eddie Murphy. So it was my first time auditioning. And I had to audition 9 times for this role on UPN. And I thought, oh my gosh, I rented every Chris Tucker movie and Eddie Murphy movie that I could possibly imagine. After the 4th audition, they said, we don't know who you are. You're great, but you can't test. And I said, well, how do you test? And they said, well, you have to be on a list. I said, how do you get on that list? And they said, well, you have to have tested for a series before or been on a series. I said, this is crazy. Anyways, they went through a couple rounds. And I was like, I had every line memorized. I even like made my own rap song for this. It was horrible. And so when they brought me back in, it went to the 9th audition. I said, I have nothing to lose. So I just opened up with a rap song I wrote, and then started singing Stevie Wonder for no reason. And somehow I got the role.
I'll give you a beat right now, and then you.
Yes. And then I remember I had $62 in my pocket, in my bank account. And I was a bunch of the actors. So there's like, for people who are watching and don't know the process, at that time, we all every role was being tested. So there's like 14, 15 actors there. And then once everyone is let go, they get released and you go and whatever, have lunch. Well, a couple actors said, let's go to get some sushi. And I had no money. I was like, this is crazy. So I ordered green tea. And I had one of those Motorola pagers, and the pager was a 2-way pager. It says, you call me right now as my agent. And they said, you got the role. I said, I have a quarter of a tank of gas in my car, and I can't even afford to get to the airport. And they said, no, they're going to pick you up. I said, they're going to pick me up. And so I literally took out $60 that day. I said, this is $60 in my wallet, and this is what I'm going to get to the airport with. And I got there, and it was the first time I was on a first-class flight. The first time I saw a hotel room that, wasn't a motel. And I was like, man, I made it. And then the next thing I know, I'm being fitted for ninja wings where I fly off the building and into a palm tree, and I yell out some crazy thing that Yo-Yo Lee would say because I'm Ice-T's son. You know what I mean?
That's a great story.
That's good.
Oh my gosh.
That's amazing. Yo-Yo Lee.
Yo-Yo Lee.
Well, that brings us to all of your current projects, which have all garnered acclaim and big fan bases. Ralph and William, Cobra Kai just aired its 4th season with a 5th on the way. I'd love to go back to when you first decided to sort of spin off the Karate Kid films. Did you ever imagine that the show would be, an Emmy nominee for Best Comedy and that, people would respond to it so passionately? Or did you think you were sort of just doing this for yourself?
Listen, it's exceeded expectations. I mean, we talk about this a lot. I always felt, and Billy is as well, he'll speak for himself on this because he was probably believed in it more than I did. Not necessarily Cobra Kai, but just the concept of another chapter, a continuation of this, this film that has become a piece of pop culture. But I always felt that if we brought them to the well, they would drink the water. It just was how to get there and how to make it relevant and still pay homage to its source and everything else. The way it blew up and the YouTube Premium into the Netflix explosion. I think the low expectations by the press and the media based on hearing this concept did not hurt us. Like this is going to be a one-off cash grab, whatever. And then it turned out that these 3 wonderful writers created something special and found the balance, if you will, between, the nostalgia and then a relevant, fresh story going forward. And so we'll take all the credit for it. No, it's a lot of work, but it's been blessed in some way from the onset. It's been, the gift that keeps on giving, as I say.
Yeah.
Go ahead, William.
Yeah. Ditto all that. I remember hearing the pitch and thinking, first of all, that it's a comedy. That was the thing. It was like, what's the tone of this thing? So their Hot Tub Time Machine, they created that, and Harold and Kumar, and they're pitching us Cobra Kai. My one thing was, what's the tone? Is this comedy? Is it family? And they said it's a little bit of both. And if it wasn't called Cobra Kai, it could be called Bad Sensei. And that gave me an idea of like what Billy Bob Thornton did. And that's kind of who Johnny's going to be today. And so it was a slow dip your toe in one at a time. Both Ralph and I are really protective of these characters. They're really personal to us. You know, we've carried these things for 3 decades, and these people, this character and the legacy of the film. So we wanted to make sure that it was done right. So we had a good say in all that, and then slowly trusted it and watched this thing come to life. And then the fan base, I think, was great. We started off on YouTube. It was a smaller audience, and we kind of got our footing and found our creative steps. And when it went to Netflix, we already had the formula. So they're just like, go ahead and have fun, blow it up. So it's been a nice, we're very oriented in where we are. Let's put it that way. It didn't come out and just go slam. It was just kind of the slow, gradual incline. And we're thrilled.
Did you ever imagine that you would have this justice for Johnny Lawrence, and where people would realize he was the good guy and Daniel was the villain?
Sure. I knew this was coming. I just didn't know how it was coming. No, I mean, listen, all that pop culture talk was a lot of fun along the way. You know, we did a bit on How I Met Your Mother that pointed to that. You know, the chatter was out there. I mean, there was an audience out there, and I think we realized that. And, you know, if there wasn't, we wouldn't be doing it. It was just like, wait, there's all these people out there, kids that grew up that are now adults and that are senseis, and there's, you know, and it's fun. And it also reaches back to the simpler times and nostalgia and the music. And then you plan it and root it in today and make it relevant, and have these great creators and genius writing team, and then cast it. And we're just really, truly blessed. It's you know, we're doing our part. I know Ralph and I both feel that way. Like we're doing our part. We're protecting our baby as much as we can, and we're in good hands. And the feedback's been really encouraging, and you know, it's gas in the tank.
Lamorne, you have an interesting challenge on Woke, because it's based on the life of cartoonist Keith Knight, but he's also the co-creator and executive producer on the series. I'm curious, first of all, what interested you in this project, but also, is it ever intimidating to have the person you're sort of channeling right there?
A little intimidating. I got to be honest. I mean, he's staring at you the entire time. He's like, "You're playing me, bro. So don't fuck it up." No, but it's, you know, I was on a show called New Girl for so long that, you know, it's a very fun and colorful show, and very slapsticky in certain moments. And, you know, we touched on certain subject matters, but we didn't really dive into things that really meant a ton to a lot of folks. You know what I mean? It was just a fun show, kind of evergreen in certain parts. And, you know, when I was done with the show, I wanted to do something that that people could feel a little bit. And I read a bunch of scripts and auditioned for some stuff. And when I read this one, it immediately called to me. This character was, you know, he's a cartoonist, and he just kind of wanted to keep his head down. First of all, he's a Black cartoonist who didn't want to involve himself with politics at all. He just wanted to make, you know, art and keep his head down and make some money and hang out with his friends, and that was it. And that's kind of how I was, you know, I'm an actor, and I just wanted to act and have fun, and that was it. And, you know, I knew what was going on in the world, and I saw things, but I didn't know how to tackle it, or I didn't know how to talk about it. I didn't know the first thing about politics, so I just kind of stayed out of it. And you're then hit with something, just like this character was hit with something where his eyes are opened. And in his case, you know, he literally thought he was going crazy, you know. So, you know, in the show, he sees cartoon characters and, you know, inanimate objects talk to him, and it's silly and it's whimsical, but it's also real and thought-provoking, and it sparks conversation no matter what side of the political fence you're on. And that's the type of project that I wanted to do. I didn't know it at the time, but as soon as I read it, I said, man, this is it, because it's me. It's who I am. And then when you get to set, you even before you get to set, you meet the creator and you talk to him a little bit, and you realize we're a lot alike. I mean, he's a little bit older than I am, but his journey in the 90s was kind of like my journey, you know, now. So that's kind of what drew me to the show. And again, if folks get a chance to watch it, people sometimes they hear the title, they hear woke, and they think, it's not for me. man, what is this shit? But it's one of those shows that it's kind of for everybody. We take all different sides of the coin and we just talk about it. And I'm a comedic actor, I'm an actor, but comedy is what I've been known for. And I love it. I love playing. I love, taking the piss out of things. And that's what our show is.
Can't you just sell people on it by saying JB Smooth voices a marker?
Oh, JB Smooth, man. That guy's so incredible, bro. He's so incredible, man. Yeah, he plays a racist marker that I draw with. We got, everybody, Tony Hale, Sam Richardson's on the show, Blake Anderson. It's crazy. The show is we got real lucky. Cedric the Entertainer. It's fantastic. Yeah.
I mean, that right there sells it, I would think.
Oh yeah. My character talks to trash cans. Let's we can't take ourselves too seriously, though.
Speaking of shows that are so good at sort of tackling what's happening in the real world, Will, you've been one of the male leads on The Good Doctor for 4 seasons now. What's it like to be on a show that is not only entertaining, but really addressing relevant real world issues?
Without getting too big, and because we do tackle a lot of present day things that are happening, and this past season was really interesting. Our first half of our season was dealing with a lot of just the hospital system, and having a son who's gone through very difficult times, since he was 3 years old, having to live that. I got to kind of be a part of that, and I've been a part of it for many years of just being in the hospital system. But I think the thing that came out the most was this season was the Asian hate. It was an episode that I remember emailing David Shore. I said, we have to address this, because to have discussions where I'm calling my parents and warning them, hey, don't go for that walk, make sure you stay inside the area where you live, and all these things. So I thought it was a really important episode to have on our show. And during the course of shooting that episode, I remember getting ready to go to work. And we're shooting in Vancouver, and I'm driving to, it's Circle K there instead of 7-Eleven, there's Circle K. So I go there and I grab my morning coffee or whatever, and I pull up my car and my headlights are still on. And the guy in front of me starts shaking his car and gets out, and he comes up to the car and he says, turn off your effing headlights. I go, sir, I'm just getting out of the car. And then, it goes on, and he says, you effing chink, why don't you go back home? And I said, and I just kind of smiled at him. And I, every bit of my every bit of my martial arts training wanted to go out the window. And I looked at him. I said, you're going to do what? You're going to send me back home? And he said, no, I'm going to smash your effing headlights. And I remember turning, and I just I can't if you get arrested in Vancouver, you're not coming back to Vancouver. Mm-hmm. So and I go, oh God, I got to pay for my son's thing. And so I turned and I went into Circle K, and I came back out and I knocked on his window to get back into my car. And he kind of looked at me, but now all of a sudden I wasn't there. And I just kind of smiled and I waved at him. And I got in the car and I left. And then we had to shoot the episode. I get to work and we're shooting the episode about Asian hate. And for me, being on a show with this amount of, at least the global reach it has, the domestic reach it has, is so important because, for most of my career, I've played the faceless villain. I've been in every CSI, Law and Order. If there was a Chinatown episode, I was in it and I was committing crimes. And I had to eke my way out of trying to humanize these characters. But when you have 3 pages or a page and a half to put a heartbeat on your character, it's very difficult. So with a show like this, in its totality, is very important for me because we're, and I'm sure Daniel can attest to this, and Daniel's had a beautiful career where so much of the time we are never given enough yardage. We have never given enough real estate to go, we have a heartbeat. We have a face, we have a life. And so a show like this to show my personal life on the show and my relationships with other characters, I think it helps address Asian hate without addressing Asian hate with a hammer. It humanizes us. And unfortunately and fortunately, TV has taken a turn in the right direction for at least, and I'm sure Daniel can speak to this, that the needle has moved forward, that there are more characters like us that aren't just now, green triad number one. And it's such an important thing for me to be on a show like this with this kind of reach.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Dr. Alex Park he literally is a good doctor. It's so refreshing to see. Is this the first time you've ever played a physician?
Yeah, I grew up in the martial arts world. Like my dad is one of the first Taekwondo masters to come to the United States, but from day one, when I put on my first belt, he said, "You're not allowed to break bricks or boards with your hands because you're going to be a doctor." And my SAT scores were so horrible, and I took the test 5 times. I said, "Dad, I'm not going to be a doctor." And I finally became a doctor. And so he's half proud of me now.
That's great.
Daniel, The Wheel of Time is based on Robert Jordan's wildly popular book series of the same name. And it's also one of the most diverse fantasy series of its time. And the show really honors that by having this incredibly global cast. Mm-hmm. What's it like to not only be working on the show, which I think is very different from things you've done, like, all your seasons on Criminal Minds, but also to be working with a group of international talent?
The short answer is it's wonderful. It's really incredible. I mean, it's a testament to our showrunner, Rafe Judkins, for the way he's cast the show, to Robert Jordan for his incredible writing. He wrote these beautiful worlds and cultures that have their own sort of palette and color and style and just rhythm. And, I think they cast it right. So they reached around the world. We have actors from New Zealand, Australia, the UK, one lone American. And we put this thing together, and it's really beautiful. It's just, like Will was saying, it's just nice to see that the doors are opening. And 10 to 15 years ago, when I first started, it might have been slightly ajar. You could maybe stick your toe through, but now I feel like the doors are open. And, shows like Wheel of Time can exist. So it's really wonderful. It's been a beautiful experience. The really cool thing is that they're just the right actors for the part. And I know these books are so beloved. And so there was some sort of pushback because we were casting so diversely and people had in their minds what these characters look like in the books. And the fantasy genre for a long time has looked a certain way. And again, it's just a huge testament to the people behind the scenes for saying, okay, we're going to do it our way. We're going to do this right. And it's been really beautiful. So it's been a great experience.
I always find it interesting when people protest casting in fantasy series because they're okay with unicorns. But for some reason, you can't have an Asian or a person of color lead.
Yeah, I should be Superman. I'm tripping about that.
Absolutely. Well, that was the thing when I was cast. I got the breakdown of the character, and again, like Will was saying, for a long time, you don't get that much meat to play with, and with Lan, the character, he's an uncrowned king who was in charge of protecting this incredible female, Aes Sedai, played by Rosamund Pike, and he eventually does become king, and he has this incredible storyline. And I just thought to myself, man, they're never going to cast me for that. I'm never going to get to play this king. Yeah, I was the kid who was riding my black lab back in my backyard when I was growing up, but that doesn't mean I'm going to get cast for it. But somehow it just all kind of worked. It was the right people, it was the right timing, and I'm very thankful.
I'm curious for all of you if there's any special skills you had to learn for your shows that you can now, include on your resumes. Lamorne, do you have any kind of drawing ability? Because I do not, and it fascinates me.
Short answer, no. The long answer, hell no. I tried. For a while. So Keith Knight is left-handed, and he's a brilliant artist. And originally, it's, hey, we want you to do it the exact same way. Left-handed, this and this. I tried, I tried my best, but it actually didn't really make sense for me to have to do that when you watch the show. So I got good at using my left hand, but as far as my artistic skills, no, it's still dog shit. And I want them to be better. I really do. So I cannot put that on my resume. I can talk to inanimate objects. I think that works. You know what I mean? So in the fantasy world, you have to do that. So again, I want to play Superman, and talk to CGI characters.
That is a specific skill. And Daniel, I'm curious, coming off of, again, something like Criminal Minds, which is a little more grounded. What is it like to be in the fantasy world where I imagine sometimes you're acting opposite a tennis ball?
I mean, in all honesty, we got lucky because, we have a pretty decent sized budget. We're allowed to play with a lot of practical effects. So even if you watch Wheel of Time in the first episode, we have these sort of monsters, these half goat, deer, massive men who are all mixed up, and they attack this village. And they were actual, stuntmen put on prosthetic stilts, and they were trained in a creature workshop, a creature school, how to move with those things on their legs. And they come in about 8 feet tall, so they're really scary. And of course, you have to react. Their faces change; they've augmented, but there's still, for the most part, a practical effect. A lot of the locations we got to go to, season 2 just wrapped, and we were in Morocco, we were in Italy, and of course, we're based out of Prague. So when you have those locations, you don't have to play with too much. Now there is CGI, but for the most part, I don't know if it's because they don't trust our acting, but we get to play with a lot of practical stuff. But yeah, it's pretty incredible. And for me, learning the katana has been a really amazing experience.
And Will, for you, I'm just impressed, and I'm sure your father is as well, that you can wrap your mouth around the medical language. I can't even imagine what that's like. Do you always understand what you're saying?
98% of the time, no. It's just really difficult stuff. And for me, the best tip I got, I think season 1 was from Christina Chong. And she said, just wait for the medium shot and the close up where they're off your hands, and just make spaghetti. So I would be the worst surgeon because I'm just kind of doing this, but I'm making sure the words come out. I think the only skill set that I can say that I got from the show is I could possibly give you a crooked stitch if you slice yourself open.
Do you have consultants who help out, or teach you to pronounce the words right?
We have an amazing team, and I wish I could put on my resume, can do a string of medical words while acting, because it's a crazy skill set that I'm very fortunate that I think I have the grasp on now after 5 seasons.
Ralph and William, your roles require so much of you, not just emotionally, but physically. Did you realize when you were signing up for this show, that you were still going to be fighting?
Yeah. It's funny. I mean, I should ask Billy. That's a good question. I don't know if I've ever asked Billy that. Like, I thought, we'd be doing some fighting, not as much as we've done. Certainly Billy's done more than I have. I mean, now it's kind of evening itself out a bit in later seasons. But, when the pitch initially came to me, I had all these visions that I was going to be like Martha Graham choreographing, just in the chair with the cane. I got myself in shape, and I was ready as I could be, and I take pride in it. But it has, as the show's continued, more of it, it's gotten bigger, and the stakes are higher, and the audience wants. I mean, we have these great kids, and they're just spectacular. None of them are martial artists, but they all are now martial artists. And we take a great deal of pride in all of that. But I didn't know, season 1 pitch, and when we went out with it, that I'd be in season 4 and 5, and I would be at these riper ages, continuing to stretch and trying not to pull stuff.
Trying is right. Yeah, I think the one thing we had to learn is how to learn a fight in a day rather than in 3 months. Yeah. We had to do for Karate Kid. I mean, these fight scenes are super elaborate and intense, and you have no time to do it. Television's moving fast. We're shooting 5-day episodes, and they're like, all of a sudden you get the next script and there's this massive fight, and you're like, wait, how am I? What's that look like? And then the stunt guys are working on 5 other fights, and they don't even have time to show you yours. A lot of times we show up and we're learning these fights on the day, not on the day, on the moment. In the moment. And then like Ralph and I, we did some. Remember, we worked out one of our fights in my apartment where you come kick through the door, and we worked on that one for a long time. We had that luxury of that, but then we get in there and then they just cut it like 3/4 of it's cut. We're like, wait, we just wasted. So just the balance, it's
recalibrate in your brain. That's a little.
It is.
to be a bit easier. We are not blessed with that budget that you have in Prague.
That's right. I think that I've learned the most on this is that I've had to learn is time management, just on the amount of hours that it takes to do what we do. We cram in 12, sometimes 13. It's not uncommon for a 13 or a 14-hour day. And then you got to go and do it again the next day. And it's physically draining. You're just, pages are coming in. We all deal with that. But to add the physical stuff on top of that, and like Ralph and I last season had our fight, was our big rematch, that we shot outside. Yeah, right. Okay. So we rehearsed that, but when we went to film that, it was in the middle of the night. It was 40 degrees. And we threw heat pads on the mat so we wouldn't freeze our feet. And in between takes, we're running in vans, warming our legs up. Then they're calling us out, and we're doing 3 o'clock in the morning. We're doing spin kicks and doing it from all these different angles. That's really challenging. Of course, being physical is the character. So that it lends itself to the characterization, which is so great. But it's a challenge. It's not, it's not when we did the film, we had plenty of luxurious time I knew nothing, I wasn't a martial artist. I was a wrestler, and to learn how to do karate during the course of that, it was very precise. We worked this out for many hours over many days. On this show, it's, instant recall as much as you can, get your leg up as high as you can. They'll stretch you and throw you in there, and then when you go through a table, they pull our doubles out, and Ralph and I go and sit down and,
That's right.
and compare our bruises on our arms.
Yeah, right. But the other thing is we definitely, from the character perspective, that's what, and Billy and I talk about that. It's about approaching these sequences through the character, what the motivation is, what is happening for each of these guys in whatever altercation there is. So it's really about playing it through the characters. It's just not a fight scene. It is growth in trajectory of narrative for each character, and also trying not to be, what we were 36 years ago, trying to not fight like we were teenagers or in their early 20s. Yeah. It's really being true to where these guys are now and what their beliefs are, and then attacking the physical aspect through the performance aspect of playing that character and what the stakes are.
Yeah, and just real quick on the last note is that we're returning to karate. I mean, the opening of the show is returning to it. So my first kick in a parking lot is I pull a groin, which is perfect. So we don't have to be perfect. We're not in our prime right now. We're both two middle-aged guys going back to our high school roots. And I think that our slop in some of our movements and stuff is great. In fact, I prefer it over my technician who's a martial artist to come in and look like a character out of Street Fighter video game. It's like, no, he's got to, throw a little sloppier. He's got to be a little this way. I don't need a perfect martial artist, which we work together on, but that's part of the fun too. And also the hooks out a little bit that we're being honest with where we're at,
Well, at least you don't have to worry about technical jargon, because I don't know if you've seen the videos of Johnny being a tech idiot for 6 minutes straight.
I've seen some of them. Yeah. Well, that's the other thing I had to do is I had to learn how to put my brain in a box and then go to work, because this character is this big, I come home and I have to literally unpack and feel myself. He's basically a caveman.
Yes. You're much better at Twitter than Johnny is.
Not too much better though.
It's pretty close.
Yeah.
Well, again, I want to thank you all so much for being here today. Congratulations on all the great work on all the shows. And thank you everyone for watching at home. Please stay tuned for more.